intelligence and holistic healing. I'm very determined for you to learn a lot today, so get ready to start taking notes. So I will share screen right now. So this is the 8 essential practices of holistic emotional healing. Your host here, Dania Vanessa. I'm the founder of bossofmyfeelings.com, and I'm an emotional intelligence mentor. You will learn today the truth versus myths about recovery and 8 holistic emotional healing essentials. So first, I would like to start, and I think I'm not sharing screen, so I'm going to start again. So welcome to the 8 essential practices of holistic emotional healing. And this is your host. And you will learn the truth versus myths about recovery and 8 holistic emotional healing essentials. So first, I would like to start by giving you the definition of what emotional intelligence is. So emotional intelligence is your ability to monitor in an unbiased way. You do some self-analysis of your own. So it requires you to be honest and have introspection. In this introspection, you reason, you evaluate, you check before you act or make any decisions. So you recognize, you could label it, you understand it, you regulate it. And by understanding, I would like to emphasize that you are understanding the causes and consequences before you make a decision. So by regulating yourself, you'll be able to establish effective strategies that will prevent you from harm or bad decisions and will reduce your mental suffering and will enhance your well-being. So that is what emotional intelligence is. Now let's dive right into truth versus myths about recovery. So the first myth is that once you make the decision that you will be proactive and you will start learning and implementing things to get better, then when you fail or you go back to old behaviors, then you think that you will never get better. Like you get so devastated that you just think you will never get better. And that is a myth. Actually, relapsing is a form of recovery as long as you jump back in the wagon immediately and you realize that failing, quote unquote, is part of the process and it's progress. So recovery is not perfect. And you have to allow yourself to make mistakes. You have to allow room to make mistakes. And you're doing your best and just focus on keep going and not on how you failed. The second myth is there is a reason why people suffer with depression. So sometimes there doesn't have to be a reason, sometimes you don't know why. And this could be that the subconscious or unconscious is playing a role, because it turns out that, like I explained, in brain plasticity, sometimes we're operating from the unconscious and we think we're making the decisions, but it's really our unconscious. So depression is not a topic to treat lightly. And, just be cognizant that sometimes you will ask someone, why are you depressed? They won't have an answer. The third myth is that since you were diagnosed, or you think you're a highly sensitive person, or you just think you're doomed and you're never going to get out of this, or you think that you're never going to stop being depressed. However, it's very important that you change your perspective, because even though you're being affected by these overwhelming emotions and depression, that's not who you are. It's part of your life, but that's not who you are. And you are not doomed to forever suffer. Yes, it takes a lot of time, work, patience, and effort, but it is possible. And it's on you to start making the work and make the choice to be proactive and keep learning. And I'm not discounting how debilitating it is, but I'm telling you that it is possible to find ways to cope. Also, brain plasticity brings us a lot of more than just hope, quote unquote, but in reality, this is the science behind learning cognitive therapies. And that's why I'm a big advocate of cognitive therapies, because everyone talks about, oh, it's a chemical imbalance, but what does that really mean? Well, in neuroscience, the term neuroplasticity is about how we don't have the same brain that we had a couple of years ago. So we are powerful in the decisions we make today. And you are changing your brain by the decisions you make today. And you can have a role in reestablishing your brain chemistry. You play a big role in correcting areas of your life that are adding to this imbalance. So the next myth is medication is the cure to your mental illness and problems. And by the way, this webinar is not meant to diagnose, cure, but if you want to learn more about the disclaimer in my terms and conditions, visit bossofmyfeelings.com. So we were on myth 4. So regardless if you're taking medication or not, it is upon ourselves to keep learning more of ourselves, to learn and understand ourselves. And if you're on medicine, you're one of those fortunate ones who found something that works. You are lucky, but there are still things that can affect you and make you feel like all the progress you've done, it was just shattered. Why? Because medications don't address like the past, healing the past trauma. And in neuroscience has a term that is biographic memory. And also be mindful that medication sometimes makes you choose the lesser of two evils. So sometimes they come with a lot of symptoms that we are really not aware. So I'm inviting you to be very cognizant of, the symptoms. So sometimes you have to choose the least of two evils with medication. And watch out for side effects. And a big warning too, that I needed to know this when I was changing meds, is when you are the most vulnerable and you have to have systems in place where you can be safe and count on support. So now we can move. Oh, and another tip I wanted to say about this is a big tip if you're taking medication is to be consistent and take it at the same time every day. And you can set alarms in your phone and things like that. The next myth is you can recover from mental illness. So, this is my personal opinion. And why do I say that? I know it sounds so depressing, or it sounds terrible, but this is why. Because when you think you are recovered, you stop learning. You stop practicing things that were working for you. And eventually, you slowly start to go back to old habits and behaviors. And little by little, you're going down to that downward spiral again of sabotage and episodes, and suddenly you're in a crisis again. And I noticed this because when I was feeling well, I was like, I feel good. I don't need to, for example, meditate, or I don't need to eat healthy, or I don't need to, whatever the skills are. And day by day, little by little, suddenly I was again having this emotional turmoil tormenting me, which I call a mental agony. So just be mindful that that's the danger of thinking that recovery exists, but there are ways you can cope and manage the symptoms. The next myth is more about stigma, how people see us. And sometimes they think we are seeking attention by saying we're depressed. But the truth is that some of us really do get depressed. And unfortunately, that word has lost its intensity in meaning, and it's different from being sad. So, depression is really not being able to feed yourself. Depression is not being having the strength to get out of bed for days sometimes, or showering for days at times. For example, some people suffer with borderline, BPD. People struggle with a lot with suicidal and self-harm behaviors. For example, not all of them, but the way to explain this is, you know, though some of us or some people are difficult to understand, and seeing someone engaging in these behaviors can be shocking and scary and sometimes incomprehensible. This is a result. This is result of behavior because they're evoking such intense emotional response to others that ironically have led people to believe that they are manipulative. But the problem with this thinking is that you can't infer a person's intentions based on the effects of her or his behaviors. So, saying that people with borderline or BPD attempt suicide in order to manipulate others into improving support is like saying that you run the red light in order to hit a pedestrian, for example. Though it does lead to provide attention, it does not actually tell us why someone will engage in such behaviors. All right, so the next myth. It's in my genes. Well, even if your parents did have a diagnosis or were affected by depression, it does not mean you are doomed to. And like I said, there's something beautiful called brain plasticity, which will help us, which really makes our brain our friend. And you're powerful because you can alter it. You can alter your brain chemistry today with the decisions you make and the habits you make. And it's a conscious focus on creating changes in our brain in an element that affects the brain plasticity, which is also the stuff we store unconsciously. So, for example, and I'm quoting Laura Petito from her book, The Confidence, what was it called? The Confidence Code. And she gives a beautiful example that I wanted to share where they have a study with this group of people that were afraid of tarantulas. And they had a phobia. But then they explained how tarantulas live and how they actually hide from humans and things like that. So then in this study, people were more willing to be tolerable with tarantulas, for example. So what brain plasticity does is that the way you act and behave today, you are actually embedding new neural paths in your brain. And if you're consistent, even though you will feel a little impulse to go back to old behaviors, if you consciously, by emotional intelligence, choose by introspection and self-analysis, you try to regulate yourself and you put in place healthy coping skills, you will start building new neural paths to go to. So when you get triggered, you don't go to old behaviors, but you go to your new coping skills. So I would like to share something very quick about me. Is my story. And this is me as a little kid. And I was affected by not intentional abandonment from my mother. And I was growing up in a very dysfunctional family. So this affected me with a lot of abandonment issues. And also, my mom was a co-victim because she was super young when she had me. She was 14. And growing up with my brother, I was able to spot how the dysfunction was really affecting us. And I also noticed when I visited my past that the school that I grew up was very it perfectionism was encouraged, and you got validation from being perfect and proper and things like that. So this created a lot of stress and feelings of unworthiness. And I kept looking for healthy ways to cope because I was very stressed. And I remember I went to dance in school and my father didn't approve, so I had to quit it. And he thought it was a waste of time and that I would never be a ballerina. But what if I was just doing it for, being healthy? I don't have to become a ballerina. So are my parents. And when I started to, analyze their history, I realized that the way a lot of behaviors my father had came from a cycle of dysfunction that was, given to him by his father. And all these insecurities and resentment habits, or, this dysfunction came from things he learned, and he was always seeking validation. He is still seeking validation from his father, and he doesn't get it. And I noticed firsthand how this affects you. But then I asked my grandfather how he grew up, and there were a lot of similarities. He was also neglected and things like that, and a lot of violence and verbal abuse. So this helped me to spot patterns, right? I was able to see, hey, I don't want this for my family. And I see that this side of my family has a lot of behavioral and verbal abuse and violence, and I'm going to cut that. I'm going to chop it off. But when my mom finally decided to leave, um, my dad, we encouraged her with my brother because we didn't want our little sister to grow up in the way we did. And we were very conscious that the environment affects you. So we didn't want her to see the things we saw and things like that. However, when I moved here, I ended up with another challenge because now I was dealing with this my mom's side of the family, and I spotted immediately that a lot of them, they had a culture where they put women down and they put each other down, and a lot of mental illnesses, personality disorders, and a lot are in denial, and some have no choice because they've been diagnosed by a doctor. Like one, I'm gonna have some water. I'm losing my voice. Like there's some bipolar and schizophrenia and things like that. So I noticed that not only they have behavioral problems and violence and verbal abuse and all that, but what made the distinction with them is that they were clearly being affected by mental illnesses. In one night, I remember it was snowing out and it was almost midnight, and I didn't greet someone where we were staying, and this person told her husband, right? And the husband was an alcoholic, and he blew up, he kicked us out, they kicked us out. My single mom with little toddler and me in the middle of the night to snow. But I was okay with it because I knew that I didn't live one dysfunction to living more dysfunction. So we were determined with my mom that we were gonna write a new story for ourselves, where we were gonna cut ties with all these dysfunctions. And I later found out that my cousin, he was diagnosed bipolar, but he unfortunately didn't find the help he needed. He didn't find the support, unfortunately. And little did I know that years later, I was going to get the same diagnosis that was going to help me see clearly why I was hurting so much and why these unannounced emotions will come suddenly and the intensity too. So that's when I started my journey. That's when I was determined to find answers. And I did the traditional thing of going to the doctor, counselors, therapies. You mentioned it, I've tried it. And as a result of trying meds too and things like that, I ended up realizing that at the end, the only person that knew how I will how I will recover from all of this was myself. And I decided to be proactive, and books became my best friends. So I started to learn, about neuroscience and cognitive therapies, and I found answers. And that's why I'm here. Because I want you to love and accept yourself and learn to live with this and manage it as I did. And that's why I decided to share it with the world, because I feel it's not talked about or shared enough, that there are ways to cope that are healthy. And brain plasticity is usually not talked about enough. talked about, and I think that offers more than just hope. All right, so let's get into So the first essential is you need to create space, and by creating space, to welcome new ways of learning, welcome a new chapter in your life. Create space means setting time to learn, to be proactive. And also, you need to heal your past. Not everyone has been affected by their past or have had traumatic pasts. Sorry, I'm having some water. However, if you're one of those people who have a good childhood and they don't understand why they feel the way they do today, it could be, and I'm going to host a webinar on this, and you should visit my page, bossofmyfeelings.com. But it could be transgenerational trauma, which is inherited by generations, and it could be passed to you that way from issues that were not resolved. And to heal the past, something very important that I need to mention is that the purpose is not to recreate trauma, to relieve it, or to keep thinking about things that happen. But the purpose is because first you need to validate your experiences. Sometimes we just need validation. We don't need it to be resolved. Or also, so you notice patterns of behaviors within you or beliefs that keep you where you are in the cycle of repeating it. And that's the cruelest thing that you can do to yourself, is to keep reliving the trauma over and over again by unconsciously recreating it by your beliefs or allowing your fears to make decisions, right? So, and also, it will let you spot why you act and think and behave the way you do today. You will be able to see, oh, I'm operating because of this, or this is coming from this, and I need to change that. And also, because sometimes we have things that hurt us or that are compressed, and compressing things is not good because it either manifests in your reality over and over again, or you can be hurting your body. It could be going towards your health. It could be going to your organs. So that's why you will revisit the past. Being aware of that's not the purpose to relieve the trauma. And there are ways that you can heal it too, and visualizations and writing new stories and things like that, which I teach in my signature program. The second essential is, no, that was the second. This is the third, which is learn coping skills in the present. How are you going to face what's challenging you right now? So, cognitive therapies are backed up by neuroscience, and this is great news. So that's why it's so important. And, I would like to share with you a nice quote by Robert Louis Stevenson, who says, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant." So basically, yeah, our situation right now is because of past, but today I am powerful. I can make new decisions. And these new decisions, which are, you're using your emotional intelligence because you're doing that introspection. You're embedding new memories, you're embedding new circuits in your brain, which in the future will lead you to operate differently, which is great news. And, I also have a YouTube video on meditation if you want to check it out. I explain the science on why it works. It's not just woo woo. And also subscribe to my channel because I will be posting a video every Monday on effective coping skills. So make sure you subscribe. And also, I would like to mention, that one therapy that I teach in my signature program that's very helpful. It's thanks to Marsha Linehan. You're seeing her there in the picture that says keep calm and use your wise mind. And I send her gratitude wherever she is. Blessings. She created DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. And this is a great therapy that I highly recommend everyone to learn. Also as cognitive behavior therapies. And this kind of therapies play that, what I explained before with brain plasticity, which help us, manage overwhelming emotions by strengthening our ability to handle distress. They teach us how to not just react. So teach us how to cope and how to handle distressful situations so we don't react like we used to, but we have new ways of seeing things. And this would change your life. And this will also prevent you from losing control over your emotions and behaving destructively. So that's a biggie, right? That's huge. All right. So the next essential is nutrition. And this is not really emphasized a lot. But, the foods we eat become chemistry. They become part of our chemistry. So we actually play a role in correcting areas of imbalance, right? That's the goal. That's the goal of emotional intelligence. So if we know that our nutrition becomes in our bloodstream, and in our bloodstream goes directly to our brain, so we have to be cognizant. So the correct slide, I think, is this one. So, when I started to track the foods that I ate, I realized that some foods were not only detrimental for my body, but for my mind as well. And it will exacerbate emotions, and I'll have more outbursts. So there is a link with food and moods, and I really invite you to learn more about properties and, get a blood test and see if there's any nutrition that you're missing that could be affecting you. Now, the next slide is on habits. So habits play a role in keeping you balanced, right? Like I was saying before, consistency is very important, and some habits we have to change, and some we are very attached to, and it's very hard, but we can do it. And I would like to share with you a quote from Jim Rohn. He says, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by change. And this is so true. And we're not only getting rid of bad habits, we're also by learning cognitive therapies, we're learning new habits, new ways of seeing the world, new ways to cope. So you're going to be adding new habits that will change your reality, because that's the big thing, right? Because when we change our way of thinking, we change our mood. And when we impact our mood, we make better decisions. And when we make better decisions, we change our reality. And we're changing our biochemistry, which is huge. Okay, the next essential is on mindset. It's basically what I was just saying, that you will be able to not be relying on, if you feel like it, for example, you'll be very aware why doing something matters, and that will change you feeling like doing it or not, because you'll have the mindset. So cultivating a good mindset is imperative in our healing journey. And sometimes we tell us stories about things that happen, and these generate regret and loathing and give us feelings of guilt. But we can reclaim our life and let go of powerlessness by creating new mindsets. The seventh essential is, can you guess? Love yourself and healthy relationships. So I realized that the way I was talking to myself sometimes was I was bullying myself and I was being very cruel. And I learned that you should treat yourself like you will treat your BFF. You wouldn't treat your BFF like that. Sometimes we talk to ourselves in our heads in the most disrespectful ways. And sometimes we also are so foreign, or it sounds corny, to have self-care practices and love ourselves. Sometimes it sounds so silly, but it's huge. And in the relationship part for holistic healing too, it's important, to evaluate those relationships that we have in our lives, because either it could be that someone is just, toxic in our lives, and it's an unhealthy cycle. And learning to be assertive and have boundaries has a huge impact in our mental health. And if we're highly sensitive people, having skills in place and how to cope, boundaries, because if you don't have boundaries, you create resentment. And then when that happens, you're really hurting your self-esteem. So that's a very essential. Now let me see. I was talking about validation too. Sometimes it's important to notice that if sometimes we're seeking validation from others, and that could be hurting us too. And the last but not least is resiliency. And guess what? The good news is that resiliency is can be built as a muscle. And this is something I wish I would have known years ago, because I used to like boil in and keep it all in and then explode like a volcano. Or I will keep it all in, compressing it, my emotions, and then I will shatter into little pieces if someone just said something wrong. Or, you know, I didn't know that I could build resiliency, and you can't. So I would like to share with you this quote that says, "One day she finally grasped that unexpected things were always going to happen in life. And with that, she realized the only control she had was how she chose to handle them. So she made the decision to survive using courage, humor, and grace. She was the queen of her own life, and the choice was hers." This is a quote by Lupita Herman. I hope I'm not saying it wrong. So that is the importance of resilience, because sometimes we seek therapy or things like that, and at the moment, we feel like we went there, right? We feel validated, we feel good. But then the next day when we're not there, what are we gonna do? We don't have any coping skills. We don't know we don't have a plan for the future. So that's where resiliency comes in. It becomes part of being okay with the unknown. And part of resilience too is contribution, because I learned that sometimes I had this for no reason my stomach will drop, and I will feel this emptiness for no reason. And I realized that when I did contribution, I felt fulfilled. For example, I used to volunteer at this cat shelter, and I helped the cats that were sick to be adopted. And I felt so fulfilled because they couldn't pay me. the cats couldn't talk to me. It was something unconditional and it made me feel so fulfilled. So I think that's a big part of resilience. Also, staying inspired, because if we don't stay inspired, we kind of lose the light at the end of the tunnel, right? We need to have a mentor. We have to follow people who have achieved the things that we want to achieve, that have done it. So that's part of inspiration, in adding enchantment and fall in love with life again. So that's the last essential. And then I would like to share with you my program where I actually teach you how to uh, do these essentials. And right now I'm open for enrollment, but the program is not always open throughout the year, so you really have to be a subscriber to get notified. And you know, it's I this is program I did it too, following these 8 essentials that I just talked about, but also this came in the way that I wish I would have found answers. That's how I wish everything would have been given to me. I was just giving little pieces here and there and clues here and there, and I had to put it all together and figure it out on my own. But this is exactly how I wish my journey would have been. And it's called the Emotional Resilience Roadmap. So if you're trying to cope but instead end up sabotaging yourself, and you want to feel empowered and receive more than just hope, and you're ready to make this change, stay tuned, because this is the program for you and you're in the right place. You're not alone. And if you're ready to stop feeling despair, begin your healing journey, stop fighting that internal battle and distorted feeling, that mental agony, really, you're in the right place. And I invite you to invest in this emotional resilience roadmap. And it's a 8-week holistic emotional healing guide journey. We do it together, 8 weeks. Every day there will be a lesson, and you will be able to implement it. And module 1 is creating space, where you will do some lifestyle check-ins and you will do some personal audits, because we need to take all the layers that are not working to find the cause. Because this is the great thing about holistic healing, is that it doesn't just help you cope with the symptoms, it also finds the cause. And module 2 is we go through healing emotional wounds. If you have trauma, how to cope, what is the secret to being able to heal and let go, and how to manage triggers, how to stop suffering mental agony, and how to nurture your inner child. So this is a big, very important part of the program. It's basically the foundation. The module 3 is called Psyllium coping skills. So here, because I know we're all different and unique individuals, and we all have different needs. So that's the beauty of my program, is that you will be given so many resources and skills that you can try, and you will be able to create your own journey, your healing journey, and customize it to your needs. I'm not giving you just one answer to a problem. I'm giving you multiple options, so you can test and see what works. And one of the therapies that I teach, and I just, there's people that teach, one chapter or 2 pieces here, and each time you register is like $100 or something like that. Here is everything. It's like everything's part of this program. Mindfulness, distress tolerance, interpersonal effectiveness, emotion regulations, all of DBT. Excuse me. And also, I have found And I don't disclose them here because this is for public view. And I want to just disclose it to members of my program. And there are other 4 psychological techniques that are based on neuroscience that are usually not talked about. And even the New York Times recently published that they're more effective than talk therapy because they're based on brain plasticity principles, which are I shared with you some. Then we have module 4 on food and moods. So, for some of us, it could be that we have emotional issues with food. Plus, there's also a link in food and moods because food becomes part of our chemistry, like I was explaining. And we explore, if we have any cravings and what sometimes some cravings are indication of something. It's just it's like a clue. We will also visit some nutrition tips, not all nutrition, but just related to our mind nutrients, like neuronutrients, and to just really work on correcting areas of imbalance, especially in our food. We will learn in module 5 how we can really work with habits and why some habits are close to impossible to change, and it's just human nature, and helping us have that perspective and understanding that will really help us deal with them better. How to create new habits, understanding why willpower sometimes doesn't work and how some habits can become automatic, and enabling self-control and things like that. Module 6 is all about mindset. So, we learn how to set mindset, how to work mindset with, relating to other people. For example, letting go of mind reading is an example. Sometimes we think we understand ourselves too and others, but we really can't. So we go into the science of mindset. And this will help us, have a better perspective and understanding and implement things that work. Module 7 is all about self-love and relationships because I know that when we're in a toxic relationship, we could be working on ourselves, we could be working on our personal development, but what if the other person isn't? That has an effect on us directly. And loving ourselves through the process, because sometimes we bash ourselves when we don't meet our own extreme expectations. So we will have a module just on how to, allow that again, love ourselves again, which is very important. We will learn about the triangle too of victim, persecutor, and rescuer, because this really is a triangle that keeps you as a victim, and you will learn how to change that and notice it and distinguish different kinds of friendships, because I know some people really don't lift you up and keep you stuck, and how to deal with that in a healthy, resilient way. And now we're in resilience, module 8. So we will have a plan on how to prepare for the future, and we will explore 4 case studies of people who were, tragedy happened to them and they overcome it, and we're going to find out how they managed to deal with it. How do they overcome such unthinkable tragedies? And we learn from these 4 case studies people who overcome it. They're really heroes. And we will learn how to find our inspiration again, which I talked about. That's very important for our perspective in the future, and the importance of contribution. We explore that too. So that was it, and the program right now is open, and I have 3 memberships. One's the platinum, which is one-on-one, and that's only by application and invitation only. The interactive, where I will do Google Hangouts, private for my members. that are in this interactive membership, and I'll answer questions about the program, and it will help you have accountability too. And you will have the recordings, and we will have a weekly theme of discussions according to each model. So it's super awesome. And I also, have a payment plan in case you need that, because I totally relate. And sometimes we can't make big chunks of payments. And the self-study also is available, which this one only includes Facebook group support, where you can share insights or questions there. So you will not be left alone ever, because I'm there all the time. And there's a single payment and payment plan. You can save some money by this single payment. And if you're a subscriber, you even save more, because I revealed a savings code. So, if you see this video after, when enrollment's not open, make sure you subscribe so you are able to subscribe when it's open. And this is the frequently asked questions. So I invite you to stop the cycle of sabotage, the one that repeats itself over and over again, before you destroy your family, relationships, before you spend all your money on, things that only give you a short-lived satisfaction and then leave you feeling empty again, or before you snap out of work or just stop showing up, before it gets very out of control. I invite you to reclaim your life and make emotions your allies. And if you haven't read my manifesto, I welcome you to visit bossofmyfeelings.com, where I talk about how numbing is overrated, and you can learn to heal your pain and heal it. You know within your gut that you can no longer go on, not one more day, not one more second, carrying this burden in your shoulders. And really, there's no worse feeling than waking up years later and you're exactly in the same spot. And time does not forgive. And yeah, keeps going, and life could change today. And you can also submit your questions about the program. So there's support, easy assignments. It's all online. There's some audios, videos, printables. You will never be behind. It's all online, and I'm also adding a week for a break for those that want to catch up, or those that are doing everything within a schedule but just need a little break, mental breaks. It's healthy. And I give you clear and actionable steps, and you will be able to track your progress. There will be live Q&As for those 2 memberships, private Facebook group, replays. And for those who register before the dates due, you will have bonuses, which is access to all my webinars. So I host webinars on different mental health issues and for highly sensitive people. And they're on this tab here if you want to see the list. So if you enroll in my program right now, you will have access to all of them, because I just offer them for a limited time for free. So you wouldn't have to worry when I'm hosting the next one. Make sure you watch it before I put it down, so you will have an access. And I'll give you also a bonus of a mini course on negativity detox. So these are 15 principles that I realized that really you need to implement every day to make sure your negativity detox. And they're also designed in a way to build your self-esteem, because when you love yourself, everything else falls in place. And a bonus for those who enroll in the fast action. There are limited spots, but if you enroll quick, you will get 30-minute one-on-one with me, and includes a preparation email, one-on-one with me, and a follow-up customized email from me from everything that we talked, step by step, a guide, and resources if you want more in depth on a specific topic. So that's huge. I would not miss that one. So yeah, that was my program, and I invite you to foster your emotional intelligence and make your brain your friend. And you can let me teach you how. All right, that was all. Thank you for watching. And I hope you found everything helpful. And Subscribe to my channel too if you want to watch all the videos on resources. Take care.